The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Ballantyne. Our guest today is Kevin Goldsmith. Kevin is the CTO at Anaconda. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
And we're delighted to have you. So, Kevin, let's get a bit of background on yourself. Can you give us a bit of an overview of your journey in technology from where you got started to what's led you to where you are today as the CTO of Anaconda?
Absolutely. So I started as an engineer about 1,000 years ago, but in actuality about 30 years ago now. I've been in the industry. I started actually in graphics. I was working for graphics companies. I worked at IBM and Silicon Graphics, and ended up at Microsoft Research. I was there for a few years working on graphic stuff in MSR, transitioned over to the Windows team, and then left Microsoft, did some startups. Went back to Microsoft, worked on the Windows team again, and then I moved to Adobe. I was at Adobe for 9 years working on graphic stuff. This is where we start to approach kind of some of the things that relate to my Anaconda work, because we were doing a domain-specific language at Adobe. That was one of the main things I did there, called Pixel Bender, that was a JITted runtime kind of thing that was part of Photoshop and After Effects and Premiere, all the Adobe products, Flash. So I was there for a number of years doing that, then moved into more consumer things, led the Adobe Revel product team, built that product, and then I moved to Sweden. I went to work for Spotify. So I ran the consumer group at Spotify for a few years. Moved back to the States, and at Spotify, came back to the States started working as a CTO, worked in legal tech, worked in edutech, worked in identity, moved to the UK for a little bit, did identity verification. From Spotify onwards, machine learning was becoming an ever increasing part of the work that my teams were doing, and critical parts of the products that I was involved in. The identity verification was all machine learning and computer vision product. So I got used to working with data scientists, working with data, learning those things myself. And then when Anaconda came calling, it was just such a natural and obvious thing, as I'd learned, because I learned as somebody who'd already been working for a long time. I learned data science by buying an O'Reilly book and on an intro to it. And the first chapter was, go and install Anaconda. So I was an Anaconda user from back in the day. And so it's been a privilege being at the company, we have 27 million people who are using the Anaconda Python distribution every day. And it's just it's a tremendous kind of awesome part to be part of that.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your journey. Quite the evolution from graphics to now working as the CTO of Anaconda. Given our audience, I would be surprised if there's anyone listening who's not familiar with Anaconda. So we probably don't need to go into Anaconda as a business, but I definitely want to spend some time learning from you as to what's going on behind the scenes and some of the new innovations that are happening at Anaconda, because most data scientists and engineers are familiar with the platform, but there's a lot more to it, and certainly some exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. But if you could talk to us a little bit about your role as the CTO, what it's like day to day, some of the projects that you're overseeing, and then give us some insight into the advancements of AI and machine learning behind the scenes.
So most people who know us are very familiar with what we today call the Anaconda Individual Edition, which is the Anaconda open source Python distribution primarily for numerical computing folk like data scientists, data engineers, data analysts. That's where most of the people know us, but that's obviously something we give away for free and something we do to just and have done since the beginning to support the community. We are a company, and because of that, I think people don't often even know that we have products that we sell primarily to enterprises. So part of that is the commercial edition version of our repository, that distribution, which takes the open source distribution, adds things like signed packages. So all the Python packages through there are signed, and you can verify the signatures. There's we curate CVEs, security warnings on packages, and provide a curated CVE stream that lets you understand security vulnerabilities in the packages you're using in your company. There's products that let you have a lot more governance within your company. So those are the kinds of things that let you have a local copy of our repository within your environment, even an air-gapped version of that. So there's entities like governments and healthcare companies and finance companies where they actually need an air-gapped solution, but they have data scientists and data analysts work in that environment, so they use those products from us. So there's those aspects as well. And then there's the areas where we actually directly contribute. We have a sizable team that just is working on open source projects for things like, probably the best known ones are Numba, which is a highly accelerated set of numerical computing things that actually JITs. This is where the prior work I did on this domain-specific language actually it turned out to be incredibly valuable for some of the things we do, for helping me understand some of the details of the things we do at Anaconda. There's Numba, there's Dask. There's a lot of visualization technologies that have either helped originate or are still the primary maintainers on. Panel and Bokeh and different things like that. So we are engaging with the community by contributing to these projects. There's the open source projects we are primary maintainers on. Obviously, the one's probably best known, Conda, is an open source project that we're maintainers on. All this kind of stuff and working with the enterprises, this is my day-to-day. So it is very much working with the broader open source community to make sure that we're not only active but valued contributors to the broader open source ecosystem, working with enterprise customers, working with enterprise partners to make sure that we're building products that they can use and that are satisfying their needs like any other kind of B2B type of company. There's a huge part of our world that's also now much more directly interacting beyond the distribution with data scientists and data practitioners. We launched in 2020 Anaconda Nucleus, which is a community for data practitioners. Having managed data scientists for a long time, I know this industry is moving so quickly, and a lot of companies, especially a lot of startups, there might be one data scientist or two data scientists that are working, and they want to be part of a larger community. They want to know what's going on. And there are some existing things that are very specialized, but there's no broader kind of community. And we've been working to build that. And that's Anaconda Nucleus. So there's been a lot of energy towards building that platform and product as well. So that's my kind of day-to-day, is wearing all these different hats.
Yeah, very multifaceted. On that final one, I'm glad to learn about the Anaconda Nucleus, and I think a lot of people listening to this episode can benefit from it. Can you give us a bit more insight into the possible benefits and uses of that, particularly for junior data scientists starting out or people transitioning from academia to industry? What are some of the benefits that will be available to them through Anaconda Nucleus?
So we're taking a lot of the educational material that we've built either ourselves or built with partners or comes from partners that we trust. Part of that is giving access, because we know a lot of the people who are using the Anaconda distribution are either students today or are in the industry but are looking to transition to do more data work. So we know they want to learn, or they're already in a program learning. So we are bringing together a lot of material for them to help people learn. We're also have message boards and things like that where people can learn from each other. And obviously we participate in that as well. So that's also a great place. If you're trying to understand how something in Conda or, how to get this package in your environment, or why your Jupyter notebook isn't quite working the way you think it should, or the way it said it did in the book you're reading. Like we have those kinds of things as well. And it's really just trying to build a place where folks can talk to each other. And obviously because we have great relationships with a lot of the people who create these packages, whether it's NumPy or SciPy or any TensorFlow, any of those kinds of things, we're also working to bring them onto the platform. So if you have a TensorFlow question, or you have a SciPy question, you can actually get that question answered from one of the maintainers in an easier way than tracking down each project's homepage and setting up an account there and then and asking your question there.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to now spend a bit of time just understanding the team dynamics at Anaconda, particularly focusing in on data science and engineering. So many people are used to using it on the individual side, but it'd be good to understand what it's like, the environment there, particularly the culture that you've built, because I know it's something that you're quite passionate about, and you and I have spoken about previously. It's something that you're particularly proud of. So help us visualize what it's like day to day with the team there.
One of the things that's amazing about Anaconda, something I really appreciated joining the company, is that because of because of what we do and because of who we are and because of the community that we serve, a lot of the people that work at Anaconda are folks from that community. In addition to what you'd expect, kind of web service developers or people who are working on package builders who might come out of compiler or those kinds of things, or DevOps, we have all those folks, but a lot of the people doing the development are folks who were data scientists or were coming out of other fields where they were data practitioners. So it's incredible fun being in some of our meetings and somebody will mention something around chemistry or biology, and it just so happens that we have several PhDs in physics and biology and in chemistry who work at Anaconda because they were in their fields, got excited about data science, started realizing that they were spending more of their time doing data science than they were doing psychology or chemistry or biology, and then decided that they wanted to become software developers, and we were the sort of very natural place for them to talk to. So that part of being at Anaconda every day is just hilarious. Somebody launches a new probe or something like that, like when they launched the James Webb Telescope, and you have people at Anaconda who not only are excited about it because it's a really exciting thing, but they're excited about it because they wrote one of the libraries that's currently being used on the telescope. The number of people we have that have contributed to things like the Mars rover or things like that is just one of the great side benefits of being at the company. The culture also, because of that strong kind of, we are from open source. We are come from open source as a company, and so we've done a lot to take the best parts of that community and bring that into, yes, we are of that community, we are from that community, we leverage or use the best parts of that culture, and then we marry that with, we're also a company that is building software for customers. So we try and do that in a way that marries these two worlds together. And I think we've been quite successful at it. It's also maybe because we have a lot of folks who come from academia. We also have a very strong mentoring and collaboration culture, which is something I'm also quite proud of. And it's one of the things that makes it a great place to work, is just how people support each other and how people share knowledge and do that in a very natural kind of way, which is just, it's not every company that can do that well or is serious about it. A lot of companies want to do that well, but we do it actually very naturally, which is great.
With the ever increasing demand for data science across companies from all sizes, all industries, and with the increased demand on the enterprise side that you're seeing, what sort of growth do you expect to see internally at Anaconda over the coming years? And when you look externally at where you're going to need to bring in talent, what specifically do you identify as areas where you're going to need to bring in more resources?
So as a company, we've been doing quite well over the last couple of years, and we're growing quite quickly right now. I think the team is doubling in size this year, is where I'm trying to grow the team. And that is across the board. So we are hiring all the sort of things you would expect from a software company: front-end developers to build websites or web services, back-end developers around web services. Obviously, we have a strong affinity towards Python as a language for doing that, but we also work in other languages. Data science and data engineering is obviously a critical part of the company. We're also growing in our open source team. We're working in some new things that I can't quite talk about quite yet, but are really exciting as far as continuing to actually push the boundaries of Python as a language broadly, not just in the numerical computing space. We have a strong effort around performance. So the Piston team joined us last year and is working on general Python performance. But of course, we have the Numba team, which is working very much in like data science, improving data science performance, or the Dask team. And so those teams are all growing, not only data people, but also compiler people. We are continuing to grow and expand the package building team. That's obviously very critical part. So that involves people who understand these packages, but may also have a background in GPU computing or, again, compilers. Having an understanding of the space and the usage is also really important to us. Coming from the community is extremely helpful. We're also working on new teams, we're working on an effort to support the Jupyter notebook project. So there's a big move now from Jupyter Notebook 6 to Notebook 7. That's actually a pretty massive change, and it affects millions of people who use notebooks. And one of the things we're working on is to try and make that transition a lot easier for people. So that's one of the new efforts that we've been public about. We just announced a long-term version of Python for companies or labs or anybody that's worried about embedded systems or embedded machine learning systems like cars or those kinds of things. This is a hugely important thing for them. And so that's an area that's brand new, but obviously that means we need people who not only understand the packages, but can actually fix them, not just build them. So that's a new area for us as well.
Sure. Kevin, given the unique nature of your role and the background that you've had prior to arriving at Anaconda, you've had oversight of various industries and the evolutions of technology. Given the role you have now and looking ahead for the future of AI and data science, what are you particularly excited to see that's coming down the pipeline? Where do you see the biggest impact that AI and data science can have?
There's a few things I think that are just incredibly exciting. Having been part of the building products using machine learning now for about over 10 years, which is not a very long time, but in the world of machine learning and AI is actually quite a long time. Just the evolution I've seen in the last 10 years has been incredible. From the way we used to do things at Spotify, where we were running we had the largest Hadoop cluster in Europe, and we're running these ridiculously large jobs to do things like build the Discover Weekly playlist. That was just the amount of computer science we had to do just to make that work, versus today where you can do these kinds of things so much simpler. But also seeing how the industry has moved from only PhDs, to where it is becoming more accessible for other folks as well. Not quite where we can get the sort of low code, no code AI. We're getting there with some self-training models and things like that. It is becoming more accessible. I think that's incredibly exciting. I'm a little bit worried that we're doing that without also, we don't have great model monitoring yet. There's a lot of people working on that, but we're not quite there yet. So we're giving people a lot of power, but we're not giving them the tools to use that to understand necessarily how they're using these very sophisticated tools and understanding the biases that are being built up into them. Those things combined, I think, is what I'm really interested in, is continuing to make these tools easier to use, more accessible to people, while simultaneously actually giving them the tools to better understand the results that they're getting from these tools and understand how model drift is a real thing and how to actually find it and mitigate it, so that they aren't just blindly, they're just throwing a bunch of data to train a model. They have no understanding what's happening underneath it, and then they're just using this model in a production place where it's making decisions that affect their business or affect other people's lives, without actually being able to understand how the model is drifting over time, or what the biases are in the data that they fed to it and how that might affect the results. Those things together, as they evolve together, I think is going to be a really exciting thing. You'll still always need very sophisticated training to do some more advanced data science, and the field of data science continues to move very quickly. So I think there's going to be a great career for anybody, whether you're going and getting your PhD in statistics or computer science so that you can do data science, or whether you're currently a software developer and you're actually learning these skills on how to do this. That I think either way, people are going to be able to do some really amazing things. So I'm very excited about where this industry is going and the possibilities.
Kevin, we really appreciate you coming on today and talking to us. It was great to learn about your background and journey. Obviously, Anaconda has played such a pivotal role in data science and AI, and based on what you're telling us here, it will only continue to do so as it evolves and grows in its impact. We wish you, the team, and everyone at Anaconda best of luck in the years ahead. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. So happy to have been here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.